If you do not mind, then appreciate my efforts by subscribing to my channel. Thank you very much in advance.
Welcome to Special News YouTube channel. Russian leader Vladimir Putin persistently continues his occupation policies in Ukraine even in the 10th month of the war. The local Russian people who are experiencing very difficult socioeconomically difficult times as a result of the decisions taken by the leader Putin, who condemned Russia to a dark pit, are in no way satisfied with the ongoing war in Ukraine. Russian citizens who expressed their dissatisfaction very well, especially with the start of mobilization practices in Russia, ignited the rebellion process on the day that leader Putin took this decision. At the moment, the leader Vladimir Putin is shown as responsible for the events taking place in Russia. Despite seeing the negative effects of the mobilization decision, Putin wants the mobilization decision to continue in the country with the support of Russian Defense Minister Shoigu. Putin didn't care that after the mobilization decision the Russian people went mad with anger and filled the streets and Russian military registration offices and government buildings. But now things seem to be getting out of control. While the uprisings against the regime in Russia cause very serious events, the seat of power of the leader Vladimir Putin is in great danger. Fires, explosions and many other resounding events have become almost routine situations in Russia. Leader Putin, on the other hand, tried to cover up such events, which usually take place in Russia, by suppressing the media. And even Vladimir Putin, since the beginning of the Ukrainian war, has chosen to hide even the casualties of these troops from the local population. But the facts were never hidden, and once they were revealed, they had a much greater impact. Russia is going through almost hell right now. Putin and the Moscow officials close to him turned Russia into a fireplace due to his policies on Ukraine war. This time, the address of the flames was again a region close to the capital Moscow. A major fire incident occurred in Ramenskoye, 51 kilometers southeast of the capital Moscow. Giant flames engulfed a 450 square meter plastics factory, while the effects of the mobilization were still continuing in Russia. Moscow, which became the center of the fires, was shaken by a similar event. The fire that broke out in Ramenskoye was put out after a long struggle, but as a result of the incident there was a live market. Russian local authorities still have not found the cause of the fire at the plastics factory in Moscow. As a result of the Great Fire, the death toll was not clearly disclosed. However, personnel from the Russian Emergencies Ministry were reported to be working at the scene to control the casualties. According to the currently available but unproven data, 38 people died as a result of this fire at the plastics factory. It has been reported that the number of deaths will increase much more in the continuation of the work carried out by the Russian Emergencies Ministry. The loss of so many Russian citizens in the huge fire created a cold shower effect in the Moscow administration. The local Russian population was already highly distrustful of the Kremlin and other Moscow-ruled officials because of the Ukraine war. With such an event, the rows were tense and the protests and demonstrations on the streets of Russia increased greatly. The Russian people were now asking how many more people had to die for the Ukrainian war to stop. While the slogans were making the Moscow square moan, the Russian administration has not made any statement on this matter so far. For Russian leader Vladimir Putin, this last process was like a nightmare he wanted to get rid of and forget completely. The number of such fires in Russia increased considerably after leader Vladimir Putin's declaration of mobilization. Russia almost surrendered to the fires after mobilization, especially after Putin's desire to continue the mobilization provisions and the secret mobilization practices of Russian Defense Minister Shoigu. Local people were quite angry with the regime. Citizens living in Russia were waking up every day with fire, explosion and such negative news. When the fire and explosion events that took place in Russia were added to the Ukraine war, which went very badly for the Russians, things started to turn into a mess. The Russian leader could neither prevent these events nor change the course of the Ukrainian war. A similar fire that occurred in Ramenskoye emerged in the same region recently when the investigative committee of the Moscow region of Russia determined that a fuel truck had caught fire. In a telegram message, the Russian ministry informed that in the urban area of Ramenskoye, according to preliminary information from emergency services, There was an explosion during the unloading of fuel, after which a fuel truck was blown up. Russia had again surrendered to the fires, and this was just one of many fires that occurred in the same month. With a second fire incident in Ramenskoye in a short time, the patience of the Russian people has run out. After these events, Russian citizens expressed their reactions by taking to the streets or sharing on social media. A Russian citizen shared the following sentences on Twitter after this incident. Yes, Russia is on fire again as usual. The explosion of a fuel tanker behind the plastics factory in Ramenskoye near Moscow is giving the locals a total nightmare. We are now afraid to even go out on the street. If Putin continues the war, it will not be a surprise if much more such incidents occur. Local residents were quite angry with the Russian leader. In fact, most of the people living in Russia thought that the ongoing war in Ukraine was hurting them. As a result of dozens of surveys conducted in the country, almost 8 out of 10 Russian citizens stated that they opposed the Ukrainian war and declared that this war must be put to an end immediately.